Today I'll be sharing my experience microdosing psilocybin mushrooms. Just a little background about why I decided to microdose psilocybin mushroom. I suffer from clinical depression, and I've tried everything on the market. My doctor has given me everything on the market, things such as Prozac, Paxil, Seroquel, Wellbutrin, Klonopin, Xanax, whatever you can name, I've been on it. And I'm what you call drug resistance. I have drug resistance depression, meaning no matter medication that I take, my depression and anxiety, it just doesn't respond to the medication. One morning I was getting up to go to work, and it was a rainy, sorry about that, I have something in my teeth. It was raining, and it was a very dewy morning, and I remember leaving the house, and by the walkway near my door, there was a family of mushrooms growing. I grew up in South Florida, so it had been a very long time since I seen mushrooms just like growing like that, and I guess it brought back memories, happy memories. And I was like, oh look, mushrooms, to myself, and I was like, hi mushrooms. And I carried on about my day. When I arrived at work and began to work, I was listening to YouTube. I don't know how this lecture popped up on my feed, but there's a world famous mycologist, Paul Stamets. I believe I'm spelling his name correctly. Being the TEDx fan that I am, I listened to the lecture, and it was about mycology and mushrooms, the medicinal benefits of mushrooms. He went over many different types of mushrooms and the medicinal properties of them in this lecture. So if you want to check that out, I would recommend it. But there was one that caught my eye, and that was my ear. That was the psilocybin mushroom. So he explained that one of the benefits of it is treating things like post-traumatic stress and depression and anxiety. So that started me on my journey to experiment with microdosing. I could not find them anywhere, so I had to grow my own. I will post a video later, a time lapse of showing you my project. So the microdosing I did 3 days off, and I would microdose every third or fourth day. I would take, I took less than a gram, so I started off with like a half a gram of dry psilocybin mushrooms as a microdose, and I would just observe how it made me feel. One of the physical effects that I contribute to my experiment, I've never worn glasses all of my life, but now my vision is getting poor. Before I started the microdosing, I had just gotten glasses, and I noticed that when I had my first initial dose, I observed the way it physically made me, had the effects physically. You're not supposed to feel anything. It's not supposed to change you any type of way, but for some reason, I did feel something. I felt it. For an example, if you've ever had any type of IV medication, such as you've ever been put asleep, you know that feeling that you get when the medication hits your vein. It just scans you, the way your system takes it in. Well, it was sort of like that. But the scan is always the same. It always starts here and it works its way down. I actually feel it. You're not supposed to, but I do. But I noticed that every time I would microdose, I didn't need my glasses as much. So that was one of the physical effects. And I'll complete this story. So I went back to the doctor shortly after I had started microdosing. And to my surprise, the doctor told me that my right eye was now 20/20. Now, I think that the mushrooms contributed to the healing of that. But, I don't know if you've had any type of experiences with that, leave it in the comment area. As far as my depression and anxiety goes, I can't tell you that I walked around all giddy and happy, but I did notice that the tightness in my chest that I normally have a lot, I didn't have so much. I didn't have any, really. I did not document not one panic attack. So, I don't know. As far as my depression goes, I'm not cured, of course, but during that time, I wasn't as down as I normally feel. So I did see a result. I did see some benefit there. I am going to start up again microdosing to continue. But what I'm really trying to work my way up to is I found Terrence McKenna late in life. So if you haven't heard any of his lectures, you should check him out. But he suggests taking 5 dry gram, which is called a heroic dose, in darkness and silence. Well, I'll tell you a spiritual experience that I had with the mushrooms. I didn't take a 5 grams. However, I tried 2.5. It was between 2.5 and 3 grams of dried mushrooms. One weekend, I decided to take that to see how I would react. And I didn't expect to have such an experience as he described. I didn't expect it to get that deep because it wasn't 5 grams. And I was afraid to try 5 grams because I was alone and I didn't want anything like to happen. So I thought that, maybe, I'll start at 3 grams to see how I do with that. I took it. I went to my bedroom. It was pretty dark and silent. And I laid down and I relaxed, thinking that, I will fall asleep. Well, I drifted off to what I thought was sleep. And every time I would close my eyes, about like an hour or so later, I started seeing visions. Well, not visions, just patterns, vivid colors, like patterns. It's kind of hard to describe, but I thought, this is weird. Okay, so I don't know, the patterns started getting more defined as time went. They started coming in more defined to the point that I was being startled out of my what felt like sleep, but it really wasn't sleep. And on the last time that I was startled, I sat up in my bed, and if you've ever seen, I can't think of the movie, but if you've ever seen like a sci-fi movie of like time travel where people walk out of like a vortex or wormhole, that sort of thing. I sat up in bed, and when I sat up and opened my eyes, there was this small, petite looking lady, she was small and petite, coming out of that sort of thing. If you see something like that, You're going to be like, what the F? And I was like, what the F? And, you know, you try to shake it off, but you can't shake it off. So I'm like, oh, okay, let me close my eyes and lay back down. This isn't happening. I'm not seeing this. I'm tripping. So I laid back down, and when I fell back on my bed, something locked me and I could not move. Oh my God. I could not move. And, you know, I'm just like trying to, you know, fight it. I'm like, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. You know, this isn't real. I'm imagining this. You know, I'm just like trying to reason with myself that this isn't happening, but I couldn't move. And then I started like not hearing with my ears, but like thoughts, kind of like you're hearing, but you're not hearing. They're just thoughts. And the thought was telling me to look down. So I'm like, I look down like that. And on my left lower abdomen, it was like some black goo, oil, something bubbling out of my abdomen. And the thought voice or whatever said, do you know what that is? And I said, no. And it said, yes, you do. And I said, no, I don't. And it said, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. And it replied, it's hate. And I said, no, it's not, because I don't hate. And it said, yes, you do. And I said, no, I don't. And the more and more I went back and forth, the more and more oil, black substance, whatever it was, would, you know, more and more, it would increase. And then it started saying that you have to admit that it's hate. And I said, no. And it said, you have to admit that it's hate. And I said, no, it's not. I don't hate. And the voice was saying, well, the thought was, it's hate. You have to admit you hate your husband. And I'm like, no, I don't. Now, I know that every marriage, every relationship has its problems. And, you know, you can expect to be up sometimes and down sometimes. But, you know, I never thought that the feelings that I was feeling were of hate. I know that we were in a very bad place, but I didn't think that, you know, it had reached the point that I was holding hate. And what the thought or voice was saying was, you have to deal with this denial that you're in. And I said, no, I did not want to admit it at all. And the more I said, no, and I was fighting, I'm like, no, it grabbed me tighter and tighter until I admitted it. And when I did, I started sobbing so hard. I mean, it was uncontrollably. I mean, it was like if you've ever lost a loved one that you really, really care about unexpectedly or something, to, even if it's expected, someone you just love like to death. I mean, to just love them. And that loss, that cry, that sort of cry, that's the kind of cry it was. It was so deep. And it went on for a long time. And eventually, it wore off, and I when I came back to, out of the experience, I was just like, wow, how do I deal with this? So now I'm on a journey to try to